Chubby. I got a question for you.
What's that?
What was your least favorite job you've ever had?
Working at a restaurant, at a Japanese restaurant, and
What was so shitty about it?
it was supposedly a Japanese restaurant, but it was like just Asian cuisine in general. Because most of the menu was Japanese, but there were some Chinese dishes too,
Right.
and Taiwanese ones. But yeah, I was supposed to be a server, and it kind of sucked because I was thrown into it, and like I was told I wasn't allowed to do certain things, so they just told me to wash dishes. But then like nobody else was doing their jobs right, so sometimes I had to jump into situations and take care of stuff that I wasn't adequately prepared for or trained for at all. But most of the time it's just washing dishes. I remember it was winter. It was in the kitchen, and because the chefs were hot from cooking and everything, they kept the window open, so it was freezing.
Oh yeah, they were
right?
hot.
Yeah, they were just fucking sexy, But it was real hot in there for them because they're moving a lot, they're cooking, etc. But for me, it was freezing. The windows were open. It was a really cold winter, and we didn't have any hot water at the place. So I was washing dishes for sometimes 6+ hours, right? And it was painful because it was so fucking hot.
Yeah.
And, sorry, what am I saying? Because it was so fucking cold. It was just cold water. And so my hands, even though they were underneath gloves, the water would still get inside. My fingers and hands would get really pruny. They would be super cold. I wouldn't be able to feel them. My whole body would be cold. I couldn't feel my feet because I've been up, like not moving anywhere forever. Like as soon as I'm done washing dishes, there's new dishes. As soon as I'm done washing those dishes, there are new dishes. And so that was probably my least favorite job, especially because no one liked their job. The thing is, it wouldn't be so bad if people were at least not like such downers about everything, I think.
Yeah.
But everyone was just always a downer. And
yeah, no, I know. I've worked in those kind of conditions before where everybody just hates it, and it's not good,
No, because then it's like, I just felt like, well, yeah, I hate it too. Like nobody, I mean, I'm not saying I wish people loved their job, while we were doing that. No, this job sucked. It's just, I wish people cared more. Like we were in the business of serving people, and yet we had like the slowest staff that didn't give a shit, were really rude, didn't smile at the people, like that they were serving. And I know that's like, a lot of people would say like, who gives a shit, Rav? Some people get tired. I was too, but I always smiled, and I always tried to make, like, I understood what I was in the business of doing. Also, because for the first 2 weeks or whatever, because you're kind of in training, you're working, but you're in training technically. Any tips that you get, you don't collect any of your own tips.
Like, that sucks. I only trained for like 3 days at my last server job.
Yeah.
And so then they just jumped me right in. So it's like I didn't have to worry about that. We got paid hourly, but we don't normally get paid hourly here, like except for like $2 or $3 or something. And then like all that gets ate up by taxes, and you just keep whatever from your, from your tips. That's how I was living. I would never get a paycheck when I was at Ruby. Man, fuck Ruby Tuesday. I'm saying that on the record.
So that was your least favorite job, right? For you?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It was definitely my least favorite job ever.
I see. That's understandable.
I did that, and then I'm trying to think of anything else. I did the DJ job, which was great, except for I didn't get paid on time, like ever, which sucked. But
yeah,
I want to make a door.
I was a tester as well. That one was fun. You don't get paid much at all, but it was fun. Then I was a team supervisor.
Yeah, that's like the job that like kids wanted, even though they don't know what it is. Like when I was a kid, I'd be like, I want to be a video game tester, just because it's like you play games,
Yeah, exactly.
What did you have to do? Like explain for the people. I want to know.
Mostly like LQA testing, which means you test stuff pertaining to localization. So I can't talk about any of the video games I worked on because I signed NDAs for nearly all the games I worked on, and the company in general had a policy where even if we don't sign an NDA, we couldn't talk about it. So there was an NDA of its own like that I had to sign. But you just, there's a lot of software that you're dealing with. There's a lot of spreadsheets and everything, and workflows that you have to abide by, and you just find flaws. Sometimes sometimes it would be functionality bugs, that the kinds that people think of when they think testing, like being able to walk through a wall or some bullshit. But most of the time it would be, oh shit. Most of the time it would be more so issues like, a tag in text not operating correctly, or like grammar tags not operating correctly. You'd be playing as a female character, but people be referring to you with like male pronouns, or sometimes you would, there's lots of video games have a lot of text tags, including grammar tags, and like a basic text tag would be like a tag that pulls your name in a video game, right? And another one would be one that pulls an item name or a Pokemon name or some shit like that, So, but then there's the more complicated tags that are more like grammar tags, or multiple tags in one sentence and stuff like that. And sometimes it would be things that would be happening with the text or just in general that break the game. So you report that. But then there's also the text itself, right? So you test. People think, oh, testing the text, so you're just checking grammar and that's it, right? But no, aside from syntax and punctuation, you have like, okay, does the text overflow? Does it fit in? Is the layout ugly? Is it consistent with like the characters that like are the characters consistent in the way that they speak throughout the game? Are they inconsistent in the way that they react to things? Are there any information inconsistencies? Does the game tell you to press B, but you have to press A? Does a character tell you have to go somewhere, but you actually have to go another place? Are there any contradictions later on in the game? Are there any accidental spoilers? So, you can have those kinds of bugs. Then there are legal terms. Those are the most important, most crucial kinds of bugs. For instance, with Nintendo, like we're all used to calling the directional pad the D-pad. Now, if a video game, a game that's published on Nintendo refers to the directional pad as the D-pad, that game would fail. That game would not be released. Because D-pad belongs to Sony. The directional pad is not
crazy.
The directional pad on Nintendo consoles is not actually called the D-pad. It's just something we colloquially refer to as the D-pad, but it's not actually technically the D-pad. It's the controlled pad plus or whatever, and yeah, I know.
Can you say directional pad?
No, I don't think so.
That's crazy.
There's certain things that are allowed and certain things aren't. There's like guidelines around it, and then there's also like for specific countries, because we be localizing across a variety of languages. People think French, Italian, German, Spanish most of the time, but we did others like Dutch, Danish, Russian, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Greek, Arabic, so on. And so some countries, like in Russia, we had to not censor, but like remove any references to like any allusions to homosexuality or transsexuals or anything like that, because it's just straight up illegal in Russia, right? So we had to rewrite certain things. But also conversely, a lot of Japanese games were very insensitive in the writing. Like there would be a lot of misogyny, sexism, racism, sometimes just straight up racism that are acceptable perhaps in Japan or certain corners of Japan, but just aren't in the rest of the Western world. And sometimes just like the writing would be bad, so you would improve it as well. There's cases like that.
Yeah.
But when you're censoring something, it's not, people tend to think of like, oh, they're just trying to remove something, blah, blah. No, it's kind of like, fuck, we can't, like, we're hired to perform this job, and the game cannot come out unless we remove these things. But in removing them, we have to replace them with something else. And so it is very much a creative role as well, because you have to come up with solutions for how you make certain things work. And sometimes, like puns, if it's a Japanese pun, it maybe makes sense in Japanese, but how do you translate that into English? So you have to do that. And yeah, so it can be a creative endeavor oftentimes. And also like in Japan, like the age of consent is way lower. And what's acceptable in terms of in the Japanese media where like, you know, you can have allusions to rape and like the girls are like 14 or 15 years old, and
Yeah.
that may be acceptable is certainly not acceptable in the West, and like it's your job to like fix that.
Yeah.
Otherwise it has like consequences like that are way beyond you, and like corporation consequences, sponsor consequences for the companies and publishers and distributors that you work with, etc. Just there's so much that goes in there. And it's funny because most of the world just sees it like on the outside. I say most of the world. Most of the world doesn't give a shit. But like places like Game FAQs and the gaming spheres of like 4chan and Twitter have like a very twisted understanding of how things like that work. Speaking of which, it's funny. We actually use, you know, the companies that we work with would sometimes be like for reference material, provide us with like let's plays of the Japanese version of the game being played by someone American who like bought the game and played it on their channel. And they're like, that's like, use that so that we like could skip around the game, for instance,
Right.
during the familiarization stage. And it's funny. So sometimes we try to look for reference material, and I would just stumble upon game FAQs, and it was just every time people would be wrong. Like, this game was never gonna get localized. I checked with my friend works for this company, and they talked and they to me about it, and they said it's getting localized and it's dropping next month. And I'm like, where are they getting this information? It's always lies, or like my friend confirmed it's not coming out, and it's like, what? They don't want to localize it because this, that. It's like, no, that's not why they don't localize it. It's because it's a lot of money, and they don't like have enough budget. They don't have a budget allocated to that for that quarter. You know, it's just so much business stuff that goes into the making of video games that nobody considers. It seems when it comes to like the vocal people on the internet. But you know, then again, the people who are vocal on their internet aren't necessarily a representation or an accurate representation of the, you know, average consumer. Most people aren't obsessive.
That's just of course it's a different thing altogether. Like it's like talking about the silent majority.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Or like, yeah, exactly. So silent majority, that's kind of like what people, that's the real consumer, not the vocal minority.
Yes.
So it's important to kind of remember.
So this whole time we've been talking, I've just been building a waterfall that just goes down, down, down. And
that's cool.
I tried to put a boat on it, and I ended up underwater in the boat somehow.
Oh.
And so I took the boat out. I really don't know what I'm doing with it, but you know.
You're doing it though. Whatever you're doing, I know that you're doing it, and you're doing it.
I keep climbing up it and going down it, and it's very satisfying though, you know?
That's good.
I just don't know where the end game is. Like, it'd be cool if this went somewhere, but it just it just goes down and down and down and down.
I feel you on that.
And further down. You went up in flames. What happened?
I made a small mistake, is what I did. And
well, at least you died like at home.
Yeah, but most of my stuff burned up.
Oh. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I had a lot of stuff. I made a mistake. Yeah.
Talk to me about it.
I did a dum-dum.
Tell me about it.
Also, like, my game is like glitching out. It seems like I'm perpetually on fire. Like, I can't stop the animation. Like, I'm in water right now, and it's doing the sound effect of me, like, killing the flame, but I'm just not stopping burning on my screen. Oh, finally it stopped. Opening a door helped stop the animation.
I mean, you were just really on fire.
I guess I was. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. There's other things that I'm not referring to because it's hard to condense like the role of an LQA tester just in a single episode of a playthrough. But there's a lot involved, and it definitely can be fun if it's a good game. If it's not, it can suck pretty bad. And it's a lot of work. And so whenever people say like, oh wow, the QA testers are so bad because I found one mistake, it's kind of like, well, yeah, ideally you find no mistakes. But if you find one mistake, it's usually the case is there were hundreds and there's limited amount of time. You know, like with Sonic Boom, I didn't work on that one at all because that precedes me by a couple of years of my experience as a tester. But I knew some people who worked on that, and they had a very small time frame, small team, because a very small budget was allocated to that, and so very little could be done.
More lava.
But people will clown on the testers, like saying that they did a bad job, when in fact it's not even the testers or the developers at fault there. It's more so whoever's running the show, the directors, the project managers, and And I mean, I know that because I became a project manager. I climbed my way up to team supervisor, to then project coordinator, and then eventually to project manager. And then you sort of see things. You get a better understanding of the big picture, and you really know that you get to appreciate that it's not that one person can make all the difference here or there. It's just a lot of moving parts. And sorry if it's boring for the listeners.
No, I think it's interesting. But I do want to say I struck lava down here.
Nice.
But I'm going to make obsidian.
I'm going to go to bed. So how about we both go to bed and maybe... fuck the bed. Fuck the bed, dude. Fuck the bed.
Dude, I will fuck the bed.
Let's just continue next time on ChibiChubby.
Oh, God. Next time, we're making obsidian. Woo!